Hello guests, Ritzy Bellhop here, and welcome to Quite Optimal, the show where we discuss the best of everything on a per dollar basis. And today, we're going to be talking about every generation of pickleball paddle from Generation 0 to the brand new Generation 4 paddles. We're going to be looking at my favorite value paddle from each generation, and I'm going to talk about if the older generations are still worth considering, or if the newer paddles make them all obsolete. And the answer may surprise you. So starting with Generation 0, these are going to be paddles made primarily of wood or possibly aluminum. And the only thing I like about Generation 0 is that they can be found for dirt cheap. For example, my favorite Generation 0 paddles are the Go Sports wooden paddles, which come in packs of 2 or 4 and work out to be less than $10 a paddle. Because they are so cheap, I can't say that Generation 0 is irrelevant because they are the most affordable option. But I would never recommend learning the sport with a Generation 0 paddle. The sweet spot is small, the response and spin is terrible, the power is low, they're loud. A Generation 0 paddle is just difficult to learn with and does not prepare you for transitioning to better paddles in the future. So only buy a Gen 0 paddle if you absolutely cannot afford anything else. I'll leave a link to those Go Sport wooden paddles along with all the other paddles I'm about to talk about in the description below. Going from Gen 0 to Gen 1 was the biggest leap in technology in pickleball paddle history because they figured out that they could use a polypropylene honeycomb core and sandwich it in between textured surfaces like carbon fiber. The core made the sweet spot bigger and the paddle quieter, while the textured surface made it so that you could put more spin on the ball to direct it where you want to go. My favorite Gen 1 paddle is the $40 Royce Long, which you can buy on Amazon. It costs less than half of a modern paddle, but provides more than half of the performance of a modern paddle, which technically makes it more optimal on a per dollar basis. I really like Gen 1 paddles for the value that they provide, and I think they are an excellent option for people just starting to get into the game even now. Next came Gen 1.5, and with Gen 1.5 they figured out that if they injected a dense EVA foam around the edge of the paddle, it distributes the weight away from the center, which further expands the sweet spot. Now my favorite Gen 1.5 paddle to have used was this Vatic Pro Prism Flash, but in today's market, spending $100 on a paddle that uses Gen 1.5 technology doesn't really make sense. So instead, I would recommend the Hisk Rav Pro for Gen 1.5 because it can be bought on Amazon for less than $80, and it often goes on sale for much less. Like today I looked and it was on sale for less than $50, which is a very good price for the performance. I really like Gen 1.5 paddles. I think they are the easiest paddles to learn the game with, and I strongly recommend them to recreational players even now. Next came Generation 2, which is when the industry began hyper-focusing on power. They found that by using heat, they could basically bond the entire paddle into one solid piece, which is a process called thermoforming. And while thermoforming does make a paddle more powerful by reducing the energy lost through vibration, it also compromises the structural integrity of the polypropylene core, which is why Gen 2 paddles suffer from core crushing much more often than their predecessors. My favorite Gen 2 paddle is the $90 Pan Fryer, which hasn't core crushed in the months that I've owned it, but there really isn't any reason to buy a Gen 2 paddle anymore. You aren't really saving any money by going with older technology in this case, and every aspect of the Gen 2 paddle is outperformed by the newest generation. So don't get a Gen 2 paddle, they are quite optional. Following Gen 2, we got last year's Gen 3 paddles, which simply added more foam to the core. Some paddles went so far as to fill each and every cell of the polypropylene honeycomb with foam, which caused the entire paddle to perform very inconsistently. Others, like my favorite Gen 3 paddle, the $100 Luz Cannon, added a second ring of foam around the edge. Gen 3 paddles are a little bit more powerful than Gen 2, but they are also more expensive and they still suffer from that core crushing issue I described earlier, so I don't really see any reason to buy a Gen 3 paddle anymore. This year is the year of Gen 4, which is when they realized, hey, if the key to making paddles better from year to year is simply adding more foam, why not make the entire core foam? Which is precisely what they did, including with my favorite Gen 4 paddle, the Vatic Pro V-Sol Power. Making the leap to all foam was an enormous improvement for the sport. Not only do fully foam paddles offer more power than Gen 3 paddles, but they also offer more control. And because Gen 4 paddles ditched the polypropylene altogether, they do not suffer from core crushing like Gen 2 and Gen 3 paddles did. So absolutely, if you are looking for a top tier Gen 4 paddle, get the Vatic Pro V-Sol Power. It will not disappoint. And use my discount code RITZY on their website for a 10% discount. So, final judgment, Generation 0, skip, unless you absolutely cannot afford anything else. Generation 1, excellent option for recreational players. Generation 1.5, also an excellent option if you can find it on sale. Generation 2, skip. Generation 3, skip. Generation 4, excellent option, especially if it's your goal to get competitive at the game. So there you have it, my favorite paddle from every generation. I'll leave links to all those paddles in the description below, and if you'd like to watch more unsponsored videos on optimal living, I've left them for you just to the right of the katana. And should you ever have need of a Ritzy bellhop again, you can summon me by ringing that secret bell that appears after hitting the subscribe button.